Amar Hamid, who's the founder of the Thowra Foundation, not the Thowra Foundation, but things may change, the title may change. And on my right, we will have Ziyada, who's a member of the Syrian National Council and a founder of the Damascus Center for Human Rights, both in Washington, D.C., and just paying very close attention to what's going on. So while we wait for when I turn to you, and maybe you can start.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I think we've all been following the news as far as developments in the region is concerned, and probably months ago no one would have expected that something along these lines would be happening in the region, but it is. And I'm not going to delve sort of right now into the causality of it, because that's really sort of a big question that will be debated for many years. But let me focus right now on the particular developments in Syria and since the beginning of the revolution and where we are right now. Basically, this revolution started as a peaceful protest movement, and for the most part it remains peaceful. But over the last 8 to 12 weeks, we've really seen a degree of militarization of the revolution, especially in the central parts of Syria and the northern part of Syria. But also now it has spillovers even in the Damascene countrysides and also in the south part of Syria. And the reasons for that kind of turn into militarization is really the intensive oppression that the peaceful protesters have really been subjected to. I mean, we've seen several Tiananmen Square type moments with people facing tanks, but instead of having the tanks actually swerving left or right or avoiding firing at people, these tanks and the drivers of these tanks had no problem firing into the residential areas, no problem killing the protesters. So when you have a regime, as I was talking to Professor Picasting, is when you have a regime that cannot be shamed, that doesn't care about its image, that doesn't care about its public image, neither inside the country nor outside, and only cares about its limited support base. And as long that they can still derive support from that particular sets of communities, then they really don't give a damn about all other factors. And when they can count on unquestionable or unquestioning support from Iran, and they can count on a Russian sort of Chinese veto, and they can count also on some kind of logistical support from Hezbollah and these kind of groups, then they really don't care about issues of public image and reputation and whatever. So that is one element that has always been our mind when we started this revolution, is that, you know, we knew that we are dealing with shameless people who have dealt with impunity for a long period of time with the internal situation, and people who cannot be shamed, and people who cannot be pressured really, and not even economically really, as we have seen. So how can we maintain that peaceful character of the protest? So now we realize that you know, the nonviolence definitely has reached its limitations, because the conditions for successful implementation of that kind of struggle are not met within the Syrian circumstances. And a lot of people are beginning to see from their own experiences, not anymore on the basis of any kind of academic considerations, but their own experiences have shown them that nonviolent resistance is not working. So a lot of people in different communities in Syria are now turning toward the defectors and the increasing role of the defectors, and organizing something called the Free Syrian Army, and the role of that army in trying to protect the different protest communities. Of course, the problem is with that situation is that this army is not receiving any outside support. It's still a project in motion. A lot of the members are in the army are really civilians who joined it and joined the defectors and are working under them. And it has not been endorsed politically by any of the opposition groups. In fact, the major opposition coalitions that have emerged, especially the Syrian National Council, that's really acquiring a lot of attention lately, refused to endorse it, refused to endorse the defectors. In fact, they condemn defections, and that's creating a division in the street that's very serious. So the revolutionary movement started with a lot of promise, and a certain commitment and a certain naivete in some of the aspirations. But now they are hitting into realities, and they are. It's getting to be more and more divided, and along ideological lines, but also along tactical lines. What is the best tactics to adopt and to implement? And it seems to me, therefore, that the Assad are sitting pretty confident right now. They have, every day we are witnessing really a massacre. Now the death toll averages between 20 to 25 a day over the last, almost 8 weeks. The situation is getting is really transforming from bad to worse. As far as the human cost is concerned, despite the fact that. The Turkish Prime Minister at one point was willing to come up and say we will not allow another Hama during the election, and well, a few days after his statements, another Hama did take place. The troops went into Hama, but it was sort of like a symbolic second Hama, because they didn't commit sort of the major massacres that they committed in 1982, but they still managed to get back control of the city. The second Hama is happening in Homs, actually. This is where the conditions are very similar to what happened in 1982 in Hama. The tanks are in the street, they're bombing residential neighborhoods. If you go to YouTube, or if you go to my blog, basically, where I try to collect all of these videos for you and comment on them, put them together, you can see actually that in Homs over the last few weeks there have been continuous bombardment of residential neighborhoods in the center of the city. This is the center of the rebellion, basically, and we're talking about serious warfare here. And the problem is, the number of defectors don't justify that kind of violence anyway, and there haven't been any clashes, in fact, between loyalists and defectors in Homs city. The clashes are taking part in the countryside, where defectors have the ability to adopt guerrilla warfare tactics, sort of like hit and run. But Homs city itself has not witnessed that kind of violence on part of defectors. So you really wonder, what are the loyalists doing? Whom are they bombarding? What's the point beyond shelling residential neighborhoods? So it's a terror campaign, really, that's taken place. The world is watching. We hear occasional condemnations, but that's it. I mean, threats of increased economic sanctions, but nothing else. But the geopolitical situation is not helping the revolution. Really, everybody is afraid of change in Syria because it impacts Turkish interests, it impacts Iraqi interests, Israeli interests, Lebanese interests, Jordanian interests, Saudi interests, Qatari interests. Everybody seems to be. And in fact, even Indian interests, South African interests, every regional power right now or global power that wants to struts its stuff basically on the international scene seems to have an interest right now in Syria and how the situation develops. And all of these interests don't seem to coincide with the interests of the Syrian people and their aspiration for freedom. So the Syrian people are really fighting against all odds, and the international community that was willing to cry foul and push for NATO intervention in Libya long before the forces of Muammar Gaddafi reached Benghazi, and when the death toll was only 100, and when the revolution has already taken an armed insurrection character. You didn't hear the Western leaders basically condemn sort of the armed nature of the revolution, but now you hear them sort of admonishing the Syrians, don't carry weapons, as if it's by choice, as if it's natural for people to take all the kind of violence against them and not want to defend themselves. So the reality is we've seen a lot of hypocrisy on part of the international community in the way they are dealing with the internal situation. A lot of the people in the opposition, because of their own ideological predilections as leftists and Islamists and their suspicion of the West, they don't adopt the kind of interventionist calls. Which is very strange, because the people in the street have been carrying banners saying, look, we want no-fly zone, we want international protection, we want support for the Free Syrian Army, we want safe haven. So they are actually detailing what is it that they want. But the opposition groups, the SNC, have so far failed to endorse these commitments. They are calling, generally speaking, for protection of civilians, but they did not adopt the specifics. They are still debating that, and they're debating the leadership structure and so on. So the reality is, it's everybody, the same people are fear that they are really being let down. There's a lot of frustration right now. There's a lot of anger, and you know, for a long time, basically, opposition groups talked among each other that it's a matter of time, that that's it, the situation can never go back to the way it used to be, or, you know, it's changed, everything has changed. The reality is nothing has changed.